really struggling with this. I don't know what I'm called to do. I don't know God's will for my career. I don't know what I want to do. I mean, I need some job search help, but like, really, can we talk about how the heck do I discern what I feel called to do and practically identify a job or a career path that aligns with that? How do you actually do that?
Hello, Kelsey. Good morning, actually, now.
Good
And I don't know what
morning.
time everyone's listening to this, but you and I are recording in the morning, which is different for us.
Feels weird, I gotta say. Because it's
I
so
know.
funny.
I feel
Last
like,
time is when I was like, oh yeah, we record every Thursday at 2 p.m. But then like so many things came up for this today. So we're starting
yeah,
fresh with
we're starting
seeing your
fresh. And
face,
I,
which is always my favorite.
yes, same here. I feel like we're bringing calmer energy today, hopefully, or maybe, that'll change throughout because we get excited about this topic, but we're bringing our morning energy.
Morning energy. Okay. With that morning
Yeah.
energy, when I was like, Audrey, what should we talk about? You're like, there's been one thing on my calendar and almost one thing
Mhm.
only this week. People
Mhm.
being like, yeah, I mean, I need some job search help, but like, really, can we talk about how the heck do I discern what I feel called to do and practically identify a job or a career path that aligns with that? How do you actually do that? So, we decided in this episode, in many of our episodes, we might go much more in depth on a single part of this multi step process, but today we want to give an overview of if somebody was coming across our path and saying, I'm really struggling with this, I don't know what I'm called to do, I don't know God's will for my career, I don't know what I want to do. How do y'all handle that? We're having the 15 and 30-minute coffee chat version of we
Mhm.
want you to leave this conversation knowing how we've seen this handled most helpfully. So we're going to walk you through the steps. And if you have any follow-up questions, hit that schedule call button so we could answer them on our website, thecalledcareer.com. Audrey, do you want to kick us off since you've been leading all these conversations this week as
Yeah.
our clarity
Yeah.
queen?
Yeah, I love working through the clarity process because I really uh, feel like it's not a process I've seen in other places when it comes to identifying what job will be a good fit for you. A lot of times people or programs or universities, whatever it is, kind of skip this part and then work backwards. Like, oh, let's figure out jobs out there and then allow those jobs to identify what will be clear for you in your career path. While I love flipping that on its head and just saying, okay, let's actually start with clarity. Let's strip away everything we know about the job search process, what jobs are out there, job descriptions, put all of that away for a second and really start with who you are and what specific gifts and talents you have. And I've noticed that when I bring that up to people, I see something shift in the way that they're receiving the information because it's different from how they've received kind of job search information in the past. And the really common um, attributes I see in people who will benefit from something like this are I made this comparison to actually someone on a career strategy call this week. I hope she wasn't offended by this because I was comparing to her as a bull. Uh, and
Go ahead,
you know when
girl.
they rile up the bull before they release it in bull riding? And you're like, it's in that cage and it's all riled up. It's ready to go, but they haven't opened that gate yet. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of these people I'm talking to. Like, I am ready to work. I'm ready to work hard. I want to do what God has for me. I just don't know what it is. Like, that gate hasn't been opened. So,
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful way to say it, especially since exactly what you mentioned of starting with an assumption of, it's almost, nobody says this, but it's kind of a sense of, I think I'm limited to these options and I don't have peace about any of them.
mhm.
And, I know that I could go in this direction and this direction and this direction, but I'm not quite sure which one to go in. You might be feeling extremely restless about your options because none of them are actually the best way to use your life. and you need some
Yeah.
totally new ones. And that's where starting with a total suspension of expectation, aside from God, however it looks, you will land me where is fruitful and helpful to your service, is so special because most people don't ever really have somebody hold space for total suspension of exploration and a blank slate. Let's just start with the fundamentals before we start
Mhm.
over in being too quick to say, oh, yeah, you're like a marketing coordinator.
Mhm.
It's too early.
Yeah. Yeah, and what that blank slate looks like, we actually have an entire PDF, 22-page document PDF describing our 8-step process. But like Kelsey mentioned, we're going to give you the first, walk you through the first 4 steps of that, which is our phase 1, discerning your calling step. And those 4 steps within that first phase are intake, assignment, ideation, and refinement. We'll talk a little bit about each of those because I know right now that those words might not be resonating in a super impactful way. So we're going to dive into each of those and what it means and practical things you can do to implement those in your own clarity journey. Anything, Kelsey,
Yay.
before we hop in?
Wait, what was the question? Sorry.
Anything else before we hop in?
Oh, anything else? Sorry. Oh, if they want the 8-step PDF document, they could go to our website and go to the Our Process page and get that
Mhm.
right now if you want to follow along. Um,
Yeah,
but no, it's all
yeah.
you. You go,
Okay, yeah.
girl.
Yeah, I am a visual person, so I always need something to follow along if I'm listening. So definitely go check it out. Um, Okay, step 1 is intake, which is assessing your attributes, career informing attributes. What does that actually look like? My favorite part of this process, or this step within the process, is the polling family and friends. It's amazing to hear what your family and friends have to say about you and shining a light on blind spots that you don't even recognize are there, or picking out these talents that you would have never identified for yourself. It's my favorite exercise I've ever walked through myself because it feels really good. But then also seeing our clients go through it and they come into our first session having done this, they're like, oh my gosh, everyone had such nice things to say. And I'm like, yeah, you just got to ask sometimes. We all
Just
are a
gotta
little bit
ask.
more words of affirmation than we like to believe.
I think so. How do
Yeah.
you how do we guide people to ask helpfully? Because it's easy to be like, oh, what do you think I'm good at? And people are like, you're really kind and you're really wise. And you're like,
Hmm.
great. I have no idea what job title that translates to. I tend
Yeah.
to guide people to ask, like, what tasks do you see I have a real knack for or do
Hmm.
naturally well? Or what do you think I have just a knack for in general, or like a special intuition about? Maybe that's the girly way to say it, but how do you guide people to ask?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shy about saying that you're doing this as a part of a professional development exercise. So people are most or best able to come up with their ideas when there's a little bit of restriction on it, rather than just saying, like you said, what am I good at? Say, I'm doing a professional development exercise. So, within those bounds, how do you see what tasks am I good at? In my jobs in the past, or like other jobs that I've worked, even all the way back to high school, if you're talking to someone that's known you that long, putting that bound on it will help people come up with really helpful things.
Especially people who have seen you in action. If you had any buddies on the job, like currently or in past jobs, hit them up. Say, I'm
Yeah.
trying to map out my next career steps. So, what are the other things that are a part of the intake process? Because I've heard a lot of people, when I'm guiding them through this, they're like, okay, so like what personality assessments do you use?
Hmm.
And we're like, pretty much
No.
none. I mean, I like the Working Genius one, but that still
Working.
doesn't, it's helpful, but no, personality assessments are really designed to be very well mapped to exact
Mhm.
job titles. So in intake, what do we guide them to do uniquely instead?
Yeah. Very specifically analyzing the tasks that give you any energy versus depleting your energy. And this is something, I mean, really everything we're talking about are things that a lot of people might think, oh, yeah, I could figure that out really easily. But when you
Mhm.
actually put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, um, it might be harder to come up with those things, or it might be just not actually thinking deeply about it will be so much more impactful than just thinking like about it in passing, is what I'm saying. All
Mhm.
of that to say, these are all things, activities, assignments that you can do that we all think about. You know, they come across our mind from time to time, but actually sitting down and doing this all within a certain amount of time, not dragging it out over weeks and weeks and weeks or months, or doing it, every once in a while and then kind of giving up and coming back to it later. Sitting down, getting this done within 30 minutes, an hour is where you're really going to get the information that will help you make decisions moving forward. So, analyzing the tasks that give you energy and depleting your energy. And then also discerning your spiritual gifts. Do you want to speak to that a little bit more, Kelsey?
Yeah, well, I I think that a lot of people have taken the like 120 question spiritual gifts test, like if you've been a part of a church group or something. But they're I don't know, I want to say kind of surprisingly slash unsurprisingly important in your career decisions. Like, are you, and it almost, I've seen it kind of map to the working genius style. Like, are you a encourager, like a galvanizer of people? Are
Mhm.
you just a hands-on service spiritual gift person? Are you a discernment person, like you want to analyze and reflect and guide, like in leadership? How do you see spiritual gifts as important to making career decisions?
Mhm. Was that a question for me or the question for the listeners to
It was for you, sorry.
back up? Like, yeah, that's good. That's good to ask.
Yeah, good. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really what we're doing through the entire clarity process is discerning your calling, right? Which is a phrase that, I want to say it's thrown out there a lot, but maybe that's just because that's the work that we do every single day. Maybe people aren't talking about it as much, but really, what does that mean? And what that means is discerning who God created you to be. How are you uniquely positioned to serve this world, to serve your immediate community, to serve an extended community? What that looks like. And spiritual gifts is another piece of that pie that helps you understand yourself better so that you can make a good decision moving forward, but also start creating that no list. Like, these things are not going to work in my future
Yeah.
career. That's really, really important. And what also will help you do that is the other few activities in the intake process, which is assessing talents, what comes naturally to you. And I promise you are talented out there. uh, so many people believe they're not talented. And I used to believe that about myself. And then I look at this list. We have a list of 74 talents that we have our clients assess for themselves. And I promise you, there is at least one thing on that list that you are talented at.
Yeah.
Things is simple, or not even simple, but you might not be thinking about it because it does come so naturally to you. Things like attention to detail, precision, coding, interpersonal relationships, these are all talents.
Mhm. And a lot of people, they're like, okay, well, I read people super well, but what job title is that? That's where all of this is not. I think sometimes people are tempted to get frustrated when they're spending time in the intake process because they're like, yeah, but, like when they're looking at, like, okay, here's my core value, here's my motivation style, here's my spiritual gift, here's my talents, the tasks that bring me energy or deplete my energy. But to have trust is important, that you need to give this its wide open space and time because it will be gratified soon. But I find that when people are overly frustrated or worried that spending time mapping out all of these intake items won't, like, I've thought about this before, but I don't know what job it translates to. Wait until steps 3 and 4,
Mhm.
because not, you will be able to ask, come up with better ideas, assess your current ideas better, and bring people in who can say, actually, I think that you need to make a slight pivot from being a data analyst to like a specialized compensation analyst within HR. Like
Mhm.
people can help you with that detailed of a redirect based on what you came to know about yourself through the intake process.
Mhm.
Um, and so let's go ahead and move on, if unless you
Mhm.
have anything else to add,
One
to
more
step.
thing to shout out, yeah, is the core values, assessing your core values. I really want to shout out this course that I took myself a few years ago that really helped me define my own core values. We take our clients through a process that I really enjoy as well, but this is a step even or a level deeper, a course created by Robert Glazer, and he actually takes you through this entire process that doesn't seem to make sense while you're going through it, but at the end of it you come up with your 3 to 5 core value statements. So instead of one word, they're actually statements that are really specific about your core values, and
That's so
I really enjoy
cool.
that. So go look up Robert Glazer core values course. Highly recommend.
I love that. That's such a
Yeah.
good idea. Um, all right. So what's step two?
Step 2 is assignment, which is uncovering your sense of calling and purpose. So building up the foundation we just laid with really getting to know who you are, kind of translating that into, okay, how does that work in this world? What does that
What
look
do you
like?
do with that? That's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people, they're like, yeah, yeah, I've been stuck in reflection mode forever. It starts to
Mhm.
get a lot more refreshing once to me, step two is what do I do with that begins
Mhm.
to get answered. So in this, I think that like what do you do with that? Who do I serve? With what? How? Is what we start reflecting on. And this is where passions are something that people are really freaked out to explore because they might be thinking I have way too many or I have none. And that's a very emotionally charged word, I find. So we don't often focus all too much just on that. We kind of gently tease out the concept of, and by the way, passion is like, I would say, if we were thinking about this more biblically and specifically, passion is something that has been extrapolated by our culture to mean something that is not quite on the target. Historically, the word is best contextually used in something like passion of the Christ, meaning something that you pour yourself out for, like a worthy cause that you would basically die for. um,
Mhm.
and, we're not all gonna feel, obviously, like there's a reason, therefore, that some people, their brains bounce off that question because you may be called to be a, client success manager. And fair enough, that is not the thing that you feel like you should die for. It's kind of like God creates some people to be called to a passion, but usually not everybody. And that's kind of by design and ordained. And you might be called to a function. I've seen this so much over the years that so many more people are actually called to a function rather than a mission. And that's okay. That is really okay. That means that God is likely blessing that your talents that you were given to steward of, I'm excellent at capturing a huge amount of ambiguous data and distilling it into a teachable concept that I deliver to a small group or one person or in a written report. Like all of those are different jobs. Like those three variations of kind of, I'm a distilling kind of person. That's my talent. You might have various expressions of that. And basically, God is blessing. I can't speak specifically to every person's situation, but I've kind of seen this pattern over the years. If that's the case, like maybe one day there will be a I was made for such a time as this passion
Mhm.
moment. Doesn't have to be always, and that doesn't mean that your calling right now is invalid or lesser. It just means that you could go out in the marketplace and say, who needs help? Here's what I have to offer. And you could pick the best employment situation available to you and contribute your best that way. But so all to say, don't get too hung up on passions. If it's for you, great. If it's not, then in this stage, we focus on things like, what are you fascinated by? What could you talk about or think about, learn about, research all day? What could you cry about? Like,
What
what are
breaks
you
your
no longer, what breaks your heart? What are you no longer willing to stand in the world? Are there any other questions I'm missing that we go through in this process?
Oh, I'm sure there's some in there, but I really the what breaks your heart is always something that I think is so helpful in a way to look at it with a new lens, and also that was very pivotal in your career journey. Like it breaks my
It was.
heart or broke your heart that you were seeing these other people stuck in these jobs where they weren't.
They felt
Um,
like they were wasting their life.
mhm.
People in certain situations that feel like they're wasting their life, yeah, it cracks my heart in half, especially
Yeah.
with all um, of the opportunity that many actually could take advantage of if they had help. And I needed
Hmm.
that help in career guidance and showing me how to knock on some doors and then sometimes bust them open and throw my shoulder into it. And I think that's why I wanted to be that help for others too. But
Hmm.
yeah, in this section, like, again, it's super for some people. And others, I really just usually want to comfort them. Like, don't freak out about this
Hmm.
one too much. What
Hmm.
do you think, Audrey? Like, how do people you guide normally handle this one?
Yeah, people get stuck a lot on. There's a part where we ask you to, or ask you, walk you through, I guess, defining the legacy you aspire to leave behind. A lot of people get stuck there, and for a lot of different reasons. But really, um, my favorite part about that process is the career heroes exercise that we do,
Mhm.
and
That's one
looking
of
at
my
people.
favorites.
Yeah, and looking at people that you or assessing people you've looked up to in your career, and a lot of times it's not necessarily your boss or people, the CEO of your company. It's people that you are admiring in your free time by reading their books or following them on social media, or maybe it's a parent or a friend, and understanding why you admire them and how you can also share that in your own career for other people.
Because usually you want to give what you perceive those people give to you or fellow members of society, you
Mhm.
want to give to others yourself.
Yes.
Maybe in a different way. Maybe you will, but maybe you won't like own a company like that person did or do the exact same thing, but it may reveal something that's in your heart to complete, at least in some way. And we
Yeah.
compare that to your talents and tasks that you were designed to steward exceptionally well. And when you spend your whole day doing them, you don't come home and feel so deflated and like can
Mhm.
hardly really give your heart to your small group or your friends or your spouse or your roommates. Um,
Mhm.
what would make you have the kind of day where you're like, I left it all out there and I did my best work and I actually helped people. This is amazing. Um,
And I still have
contributing
energy.
towards still have energy.
Yeah.
Yes, this is so important to me. I feel like if people only focused on that, they would already be so much better off than how most people are handling their clarity search. I realized,
Mhm.
side note, Audrey, I should have clarified this at the beginning. And you were kind of touching on this, but I just really want to hit home with like, LOL, it's so random that I'm bringing this up here. But what is a calling? It's
Oh.
very, we mean something very specific. So
Mhm.
we're not trying to use inflammatory, vague, like Christianese language. Like we really do mean calling because a calling is oftentimes different than how people, culture in general handles like my purpose. My purpose might be chosen, self directed, something that is something that you want to like get, not always, but there's a risk of like you want to get it for you.
Mhm.
Not always, but sometimes. A calling is a very submissive, like Christ is Lord kind of attitude with like, he gave me my life belongs to him attitude in career exploration, where we acknowledge a calling, and this is biblical, is from God. Because logically, you can't have a calling unless you receive it from a higher power that directs or calls. A calling is not self directed. Like, you call yourself, that sounds kind of dumb. So, a calling is from God, done for God and his glory and the good of others
Mhm.
through God's strength. From, for, through is what we are looking for. And the amazing thing is, that is what a calling definitely is. What a calling is not always is an audible voice, clear, crystal clear instructions all at once when you want it, or especially guaranteed success. I hate it, honestly. I really hate this. The habit of, quote, seeking God's will so that you don't do anything wrong and don't experience pain, or don't experience a death of ego, resources, perceived opportunity. We cannot guarantee those things in life. And God, by his grace, is not always shielding us from certain deaths that produce a person that is prepared for eternal life. And I am very, very passionate about that. So I think that one thing that we try to instill in all of this is you are free to explore this with God, because he will protect you in the ways that he knows are best. And you won't likely be privy to that throughout your life. And he will also guide you in his mysterious way, because you have a heart that says, I want what you want. Or you at least acknowledge openly, God, I don't think, like, be honest with God. I don't think I want what you want. May you
Mhm.
please purify my heart. May you please give me a new heart. Oh, I feel like like in my life, a mentor taught me, like, to, why don't you pray that? Like, if you're just constantly frustrated with your own stuckness, like, why don't you ask him to give you a new heart or purify
Mhm.
it? I feel like he is so willing to answer that prayer. He's like, finally, thank you. Sorry, I clapped. That's probably bad for the mic. But yeah, thank you for allowing me to camp out on that. I'm sorry, I get very passionate.
No. That's so good. That's such a good truth bomb in the middle of the episode. And I'm also thinking over here, I'm like, we got to clip that. We got to clip that for Instagram.
I know, me too. Well, I actually did just click mark clip on
Perfect.
Riverside, so we're
Perfect.
thinking same thing.
So
Yeah,
if
I
you're
hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely helpful. We can throw around the word calling so often, and it's one of those things again that I think we internalize as Christians, but don't actually explore the what it truly is. And I just want to echo what you were saying about that prayer about God purify my heart. That was transformational for me in so many situations in my life when you're in these circumstances and you don't exactly know how to change the circumstances, and you want to really intentionally step forward and walk with God in that. The first prayer you need to pray is, God, change my heart towards this. Like,
Change
give
my
me,
heart.
renew my heart, renew my soul in this so that I can have new eyes, and a fresh perspective on how to walk forward with you. Game changer.
I just love how, like, oftentimes we getting into the spiritual here, but I, and maybe many others can relate to me, am praying for a circumstantial change most
Mm-hmm.
of the time. If we got a transcript of my prayers, honestly. And this is really kind of reminding me to um, that, God will hear out all the tings, and I'm very grateful. But
Mm-hmm.
if I asked him to change my heart, that's how you could become the kind of person like Paul, who was in prison singing.
Mm-hmm.
And he like I was talking about this with my small group on Tuesday of we're always praying and hoping for like a little bit of heaven on earth, and that's good and godly. Jesus himself said, pray as a part of the Lord's Prayer, Lord, make it on earth as it is in heaven. And that's fine. But like how he answers that sometimes is just by showing us, like he says in Genesis 15, I think it's verse 1, Jesus, God is saying to Abraham, I am your shield, your very great reward. He's our reward for now and always. And yeah, so it is righteous to go about maximizing the fruitfulness of your career for the glory of God and the good of others. But however it actually shakes out, like our faithfulness is up to us, fruitfulness is up to God. I think it's John Piper that says that. He's the one that shakes it all. The result belongs to him, I think, but the actions belong to us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're having a hard time with actions, ask God to change your heart. Blah blah blah. Wrapped up. Next segment.
Next segment. Okay, so step 3. I think we, spent enough time in step 2, which was assignment. Step 3 is ideation, which I just
My
love.
favorite.
Yeah. Generating job titles aligned with your calling. One of my favorite exercises in the entire curriculum that we have is your dream career lineup. I know you love that one too.
I'm like wiggling in my seat, so happy. I love it. Seriously,
Yeah.
it was years ago when I first realized, like, wait, what if I was just kind of messing around, like, as I was testing and iterating all the time. Like, I don't think this process will ever stop evolving. And I hope that it doesn't like pass my lifetime, that people will have increasingly insightful ways to get to the heart of discerning one's calling and making faithful steps towards it vocationally. But when I discovered this like dream career lineup exercise, I was like, wait, this is my favorite forever.
Mm-hmm. And it's fun. That's
Yes,
so
it's so
it's
fun.
so important to add elements of playfulness into this because that unlocks a oh my gosh, it's reminding me of the genius child genius study that I actually don't know if we include in our curriculum, but I definitely reference it all the time. And it's that 98% of 2-year-old children test as creative genius, but by the time they're adults, only 2% test as creative genius. And it's heartbreaking. I talk about what breaks our heart. People, the creativity being stamped out of people through society and just expectations and rules and so many things. I could go on and on and on. But allowing yourself to tap back into that childlike mindset and the playfulness that comes with an activity like this will unlock creativity that you might be stifled right now in your adult mind of having to pay bills and having to show up to these things that you have going on and care for your children and all of the very real things, but allowing yourself to kind of break free from that for 10 minutes 15 minutes is so transformational in an activity like
Mhm.
this.
Especially in just like asking, wouldn't it be cool if like that's one of
Mhm.
my favorite exercises also to give to clients, is just like get
Yeah.
practice for a whole week in the morning, 10 to 15 minutes of opening up your journal and writing wouldn't it be cool if at the top, and just riffing for a very long time and not editing anything. um, and anyway, so the dream career lineup, what is this exercise? How do you do it?
Oh, yes, we probably should talk about it since we've been raving about it for a few minutes. So you go through, you allow yourself to reflect on childhood, when you were in high school, college, and beyond, all the dream careers that you have had, and just list them out and list out the age that you had them as well, creating kind of a timeline. And you will start to see that there actually is very common theme that kind of goes within these. Like, a lot of people are trying to think of some examples. Teacher. Actually, you know what? I've had a lot of astronauts recently.
I
people
love
who
that.
dreamed of being an astronaut. A lot of male clients. So I'm just thinking about these like little boys who just want to be an astronaut. And what that says to me is wonder and discovery. Like, oh, I just want to be. I love discovering new things, and I love being maybe pushed out of my comfort zone, or just um, I don't know. Exploration is really what sticks out to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that throughout the rest of their dream career lineup. And, it's helpful to have that outside perspective draw those themes out for you, because you might look at that list and see nothing. You're like, okay, I wanted to
Yeah.
be an astronaut and then I wanted to be an engineer. That doesn't make any sense together. It's like, no, it actually does. It
Well, first off,
does.
astronauts are engineers, so
That lineup actually makes a lot of sense.
yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, so the impactful part is making it 3 columns also to make
Mhm.
sure that you're seeing themes is first column, well, job title, second column, age that you considered it. The third column is what was attractive about that to you, or
Mhm.
why did that capture your imagination? What did you like about it? Um, and it's also kind of insightful to see like orca trainer or like for SeaWorld, and then like a teacher, and then you might be like, oh, I kind of just like that because my parents did it. And then in college it's like some people go into doctor, lawyer, and they're very honest about like, I just thought it was like prestige. And then they
Mhm.
have these snuck in there, like, this is actually what my heart couldn't stop thinking about,
Yeah.
jobs. And I love that. What else is a part of the ideation stage?
So using AI, really big
Yes.
shift from being creative on your own, and then, getting that extra step, that extra perspective from a robot, if you will. And kind of putting in this criteria, just asking AI to generate some ideas for you. Like, this is what I
Mhm.
like, this is what I'm drawn to. Generate a list of 10 career ideas I should consider. And immediately, this will take you 30 seconds. And it gives you a list that you don't have to live by this list. It's just something to, again, freshen your perspective on what jobs are out there.
Especially to break through limiting beliefs. So I first came up with this idea based on a client I was working with that said, I have a lot of serious life commitments. I need to be making at least $80,000 at this point, um, or maybe 100. And I want to spend all my time proofreading and editing, but I don't know of any jobs that do that. And I also was sitting there like, I don't know if any jobs that do that. But then I was like, let's not give up. Let's consult Chat GPT. And so I just typed in um, careers that make more than $80,000 a year proofreading and editing. And it came up with, I think, like 15 great and interesting options. Well, okay, like 15 options. And then 3 of them we were like, wait, what? That's genius.
Mhm.
And then you don't have to stop there. You could ask it more questions about the 3 options that you were kind of interested in. And then you could even ask, what are similar jobs to legal copy editor or just copy editor? What are all the specialties of that? What are the biggest employers? Um, what's the fastest way to get into it? Do you always need a degree? What certifications are most helpful? How do I get a scholarship to those? Like, you could continue to ask it so many things
Mhm.
to ideate for you. And then the final step, 4, refinement, is where, in my mind, most importantly, we bring other people into this. Most
Mhm.
importantly, because after you go through all of these ideation steps to come up with a list of, seriously, here's the 3 to 5 jobs, or 18, like I've worked with clients that are like, no, I mean, I like research. I would really like to ask some questions about these 18 jobs. And I'm like, booyah, love that attitude. As long as you could be decisive about it and, you know, cross off the list until you get to one. Um, then you take those options that I'm actually really open to this or I'm curious about it. And then for each of those job titles, you say, what do I like about this? And then what am I concerned about? And so this is another 3 column exercise where after you say, what do I like about this? What you want to make sure to ask in these informational interviews is, are my positive assumptions correct? Because a lot of people get nurture a lifelong desire to go into law because they think they're furthering justice when lawyers in many specialties don't end up feeling like they're actually doing that. They're playing into politics. They're having contentious, some people, especially that are like, I want to further justice, are actually quite agreeable in nature as a personality trait. And then they find out that there are ways to further justice that are different and wouldn't require you to be disagreeable all day long. Like that's a trait that's commonly required to sustainably stay in the practice of law. And so you want to test, are my positive assumptions correct? Like, do many lawyers feel that way? Like, would I actually get to feel like I'm doing that? If not, ask them. That's not a dead end. It's not just like, oh, cross it off. For any no that I would get of like, okay, maybe going into like marketing analytics isn't going to make me feel super creative. Ask that person, well, what I liked about what you shared is this and this about the job, but what I'm really looking for instead, because you also mentioned this and this, and I'm looking to avoid that. What I want instead is to be able to spend all my time doing XYZ. Ask it this way, what other career paths or jobs do you think would allow me to do that? And bite your tongue and make them ideate for you. People generally love, first off, being asked for their opinion. Second off, ideating and brainstorming. This is probably the most fulfilling conversation they'll have all week, especially if you thank them properly and demonstrate the impact that they had on you and keep them updated. Oh, that's going to be huge. That's how you refine the list to come up with better ideas. And then ultimately, after you get a couple winners, keep on asking clarifying questions, not only addressing, are all my positive assumptions about this field correct, but what about my concerns? Are those really a big deal? How can I avoid them? What other careers, if those concerns are valid, should I consider instead? And if people did that, I think we would have a lot less confused and stuck people in the world. Oftentimes,
Mhm.
people don't translate their feeling of being stuck into an appropriate question to an appropriate person. And so, this is what we help them and push them to do.
Yes. And you can listen to our episode from 2 weeks ago to hear, uh, yeah, two
Yes.
episodes ago to hear us talk even more about that, what it means, what it actually practically looks like, in addition to everything Kelsey just talked about, to get out of your head, because your head is what's keeping you stuck.
Yes. Stop using bad data for your career decisions,
Yes.
was that episode title.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. If you do all those things, then you get to the end of phase 1 where we're wrapping this up with coming to a decision. And we have a whole process on making this final decision prayerfully, communally, and wisely, like considering your own thoughts, other people's thoughts, God's thoughts. And if you could answer all those questions on that list with a clear conscience, then we're all feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And we can move on to phase 2, which is let's make it happen, baby. Let's get that job or start that business. Anything else that you want to add, Audrey, to helping people clarify their callings?
I don't think so. I would just encourage you, as you are going through this process, allow yourself to really step into the wonder, step into the um a space of, like we talked about in the beginning, of like stripping everything away and building up this foundation of understanding who you are, and you will then go through that process of refining it down through these steps.
Mhm.
That's what it looks like in a one sentence overview.
Yes. And I realized as you were talking that I need to say, like, again, where is God in this? And where is the sense of calling instead of worldly personal decision of purpose? It's that it was kind of vaguely in the like prayer process that I mentioned, but I think it's so beautifully also demonstrated through our sweet client. I don't think he'd care, Mark, who was also like, you can't look up Mark, whatever. But he was talking about how, okay, I went through all these 4 steps this week. We were talking to him, and
Mm.
I am really feeling like this particular career path could be, and this is key, the most faithful use of my life that as I see it now with all the information that God has given me for today. Based on what I know today, this is a faithful way to steward my life in service to God and service to others. It makes sense based on the way that He designed me. And that is a personal decision based on the wisdom that God teaches us through the Bible. And we would still call that a calling, because we are called to, if you read the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25, you will see that the master did not give his servants specific instructions verbally. He was basically subtly expecting, you know who I am, you know how you should be using your life. Obviously, don't just sit there, do something, multiply, look at the resources that you're given, and why don't you, while you're here, multiply them. And that is often what we see in the Christian life. The faithful person moves forward without guarantees of success, like, but trying their best to say, I think this is the most faithful way that I can multiply the things that are given to me now. And you are asking God all along. You could say, God, honestly, I still crave for you to speak. I crave for you to tell me, do you smile upon this decision? If not, smite it, get it out of here. And that is what happened to Mark this week. He said, I'm going to pray something specific, God. And the amazing thing is, what is it? Samuel chapter 14. I think I highly encourage you to read 14 and 15. It's in one of those chapters, the story of Jonathan asking God to give him a sign. Like, if you give me this sign, I will know that you have given this army into my hands and will succeed. And if not, that's uncomfortable, but I don't think that there was really a resolution. If not, I'll just try my best, um, and I might die, but and God met him so specifically. I don't think that there's anything super magical about getting the prayer exactly right. You're just saying, God, I'm a little human and I need help. Here's what I'm thinking. Would you please, in Jonathan's case, make them say, like the army, oh, I see like this guy coming up to our cliff. Come up here. And he was like, if you tell me to come up here, I'm going to trust God that means that you're going to protect me up there and we're going to win. And in Mark's case, he was like, would you just make me this week, if this is the right thing, would you make me so excited? Would you ignite my heart toward this job and this purpose if you're blessing it? Or would you make me loathe it? If not, make me hate it. And I think how he told it, you could remind me, Audrey, is he said like an immediate sense of like
Mm-hmm.
absolute spiritual elation came upon him. And he was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And just trust that even if that's like a little bit too much of a requirement of faith for you and you're thinking, oh, Kelsey, like that's not enough. God is gracious. There's also people in the Bible. I'm struggling to remember the exact story, but it's in the Old Testament. It's probably in Samuel or Kings, about people who they ask for a sign and they're like, okay, yeah, thank you. Can you give me one more sign? Okay, can you give me one more sign? I don't think we're encouraged to become those kind of people. But if you are, God acknowledges that we are like a little people that need help. And He is
Mm-hmm.
gracious and merciful. So, you know, you can keep on asking for signs. I've had clients do that and they're like, okay, now I just feel ridiculous. I'm like, perfect. That shows that your heart is changing. Can we go now? Can we do this?
Then we move on.
And we move on. So that's an acknowledgement of the mystery and the desire to continually submit to God in the discomfort of the fact that wisdom, as we see it in the Bible, is often a practice of holding the truth between two extremes. And we have to do that in our job searches of saying, I will, God, every day, I will ask you to speak to me audibly, specifically, and powerfully. I will ask you to give me a vision while acknowledging the other side of the extreme. You may never give it. You may decide that no matter what, I just need to keep on moving forward to use my life well today. I may just have to make a decision logically based on the wisdom principles I see after getting to know you through your great word in the scriptures. Trust that he will meet you along the way in his mystery, in his timing. It might not be exactly when you're praying on a Tuesday night. It might be 2 years later where you just cry, realizing, oh my gosh, he was there the whole time. Oh, I just love God. He cares about us so much. And he acknowledges that, oh my gosh, this is such a mess, but he's using this jungle gym of life to refine our character and turn our hearts towards him. And for that, I am grateful.
And remember that we are the only ones that miss the appointments we set with God. So if you want his help and you want to speak with him, he will always show up to the appointment. It's so often that we're the ones who skip.
Oh my gosh, throwing that truth. Okay, Audrey. Okay, I'm gonna go have an appointment with God. Bye. Thanks for the conversation. Seriously, if anybody needs more help or wants more conversation on this, we really are available. So would you please take us up on our serious offer to talk about this week? Go ahead, go to our website, thecalltocareer.com, upper right corner. It's very easy to see our calendar and literally talk to Audrey like tomorrow. Well, probably, I think you're full, but,
I would encourage you, if you want to talk soon, book a call soon, because people are out here.
Summer is our busy season. Summer, like it's like really, July is traditionally like our biggest busy season ever. So
yeah, and I get so excited for those calls. So genuinely, I want to talk to you. I will come to the call with excitement and with a smile, because I just like meeting people where they're at.
Yes. Oh, you're so good. Thanks for this conversation. I'm so glad that you suggested we talk about this today. And cheers, everybody. Come back next week. Answer the call. Yeah. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you, so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice, so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.